I am a barrister and solicitor and immigration and business lawyer in Canada. I practice in the province of Ontario. I have multiple offices in Ontario, and we help business people, individuals, professionals, and family class participants or applicants from all over the world to not only immigrate to Canada, but later on become citizens, successfully establish their careers in business or in professions. Now, I have a YouTube channel as well, and you could, once you Google ourselves, or you would see the links at the end of this presentation, or you could we could send you those later. You could always join. We always keep on introducing smaller videos to introduce the concepts, various concepts of Canadian immigration and how one could secure temporary and permanent residence in Canada. And once you are introduced to the topic, we could always delve deeper into this by holding or scheduling consultation. You hire us, there may be certain ways in which we would be able to bump up your scores, or we would be able to maximize your chances of coming to Canada. So that's the basic thing which I wanted to share before I jump into the presentation. Now, today's presentation has an agenda which you could look at and see on this screen. We will talk about, we'll have a general overview of Express Entry, and then we will delve into the second part, which is Federal Skilled Workers class. I've chosen this Federal Skilled Workers class because this would be the most relevant, because I assume most of the people who are joining this, this webinar are already placed internationally. They are not inside Canada. They do not have any Canadian experience or Canadian job offer at this time. So in second part, we'll only talk about Federal Skilled Workers class. There's another class called Canadian Experience class. We are omitting that class for today's meeting, but we would definitely schedule something if there's an interest in one of the later sessions. In third part of the presentation, we'll just touch upon the Canadian Experience class and then move on to question and answer. In this session, at the end, almost near the end, before the Q&A session, we'll have, we'll talk about a couple of most important things. Like first class is those mistakes which generally we see in our practice, and those mistakes which must be avoided to make your federal skilled worker application successful. In second part, we will talk about what could be different strategies through which the people or the federal skilled worker applicants or aspirants who are unable to make it because of low CRS scores, what different strategies could they opt for to become successful. So we'll look at those strategies. I once again disclaim that naturally in this brief presentation and in this brief session, we cannot cover everything, and anything discussed during this information is for general purposes, and you should ensure that you're not 100% relying on all the information being provided in this presentation to take an immigration decision. But naturally, once you sign up and we have seen your documentation, the evidence closely, we could always suggest what is the best way forward for you. I don't want people to waste time in a futile exercise. I've seen in my career that there are people who are in false belief that they would be able to come to Canada through federal skilled workers, though they have very low score. Immigration law is very clear. It's black and white. Every day there are new developments. As a part of Ontario Bar Association, I get the opportunity to look at the policy developments very closely. And if you meet a professional and you come to know about a program or your opportunity or your chances of getting in, and they are high, you may be able to immigrate within a year or so. And in other cases, you may, if your profile is not strong enough, you cannot strategize, then there's a possibility that you would keep on submitting your expressions of interest year over year, but you would unfortunately not be successful. So in that case, you may have to look at other options which could be available in your situation. Now, without further wasting any time, which I know it's very precious for you, in a few parts of the world, it would be a late night hour. So we'll just jump into the Express Entry process, and we'll take it from there. Now, in Canada, coming to Canada, one may be able to come to Canada. Coming to Canada, there are more than, as I talked to you earlier, that there are more than 100 ways of coming to Canada, which may include temporary basis, coming to Canada on temporary basis, or it may include coming to Canada on a permanent basis. Express entry is a system of intake, or a system which takes in or which processes applications of certain people. There are three major classes which are whose applications are processed through express entry system. First is federal skilled workers, those international professionals who have a minimum of a graduate degree, which is equivalent to Canadian degree. They have at least 1 year of experience. They have a high to decent English or French proficiency skills. They are adaptable. Their spouses are educated. They may have job offer from Canada. So all those participants, depending on their age, education, experience, adaptability, job offer, language proficiency, they are able to apply. And express entry is the system which allows those participants to come to Canada and to have their applications processed. Now, there is another class called Canadian Experience Class. These are generally those people who have been in Canada, who have worked in Canada, and they could also apply under the express entry system. There is a third class of applications which is processed through express entry. They are called federal trade workers. And these people are generally, they have gone to trade schools. They may have a couple of years of trade experience and qualification and certification experience, and based on some modest English proficiency or French proficiency skills, they could also come. So in this meeting, we are focused mostly on the federal skilled workers program, and we'll keep the federal skills trade or a Canadian experience class for another session or another webinar. Now, express entry is understood abroad as a system of immigration processing. This is the management system which processes these applications. This is computer based. You or your lawyer can do everything on computer without any paper application. So all the federal skilled workers who are eligible, they may be able to apply for Canadian immigration under express entry system. Now, how it works, who is eligible, and who could qualify for federal skilled workers program. Now, we have to keep in mind there are a couple of systems, ranking systems, through which we evaluate whether a person would be able to meet minimum eligibility requirements, or if that person has met minimum eligibility requirements and submits an expression of interest, then that person may also be able to file his or her complete immigration application, the PR application. So in first part, anybody who has an accreditation, educational accreditation, which is called Educational Credential Assessment, ECA, from one of the designated bodies, if that person has got ECA done and that person has written IELTS or other English or French proficiency test within a period of 2 years, that person may be able to make an assessment of whether that person would meet minimum eligibility requirements or not. There's a 67 points grid based on which, first of all, with your IELTS and ECA, you assess whether you would be able to meet that 67 points threshold. If you are able to meet that threshold, then you submit your expression of interest. This invitation of permanent residence application is always through and is always after you have submitted your EOI, and it's always after this is no automatic application. This is not that you submit an application first and then you are able to be processed as a PR applicant. You have to submit an EOI based on your educational credential assessment and English or French proficiency examination, a recent one within 2 years. And if you meet 67 points grid, you are able to submit your expression of interest. Then all the people who have submitted their EOIs, they go to a pool, and the government keeps drawing out of those pools a couple of draws every month. Then the top scoring candidates, they are invited to formally submit their permanent residence applications. So all those lucky ones who are invited every month or depending on the intervals of between draw, they then submit their formal electronic PR applications, which are processed depending on the country or the consulate where you belong to. And the processing times in 80% of the times it is done within 6 months' time. So how it works, you have to answer a few questions to see whether you meet the minimum eligibility requirements. Then we help you assess what your credentials are and how would they be ranked in that system. Once you do, once you have met you feel that you have met 67 points threshold, you have evidence, you submit your EOI, then you're selected in the pool, you receive an invitation, and after the invitation, you apply for electronic permanent residence application, and if successful, you become a permanent resident of Canada. Now, there's a long list of documents which are required for these applications. We're just keeping in, just telling you a few applications or a few documents. I'm just trying to point out that naturally you need to have a valid passport. You need to have your language proficiency tests, which are less than 2 years, and they have the score, the desired score, which in your circumstances would be required for this. And if it is a case that you do not have a Canadian qualification or education, you need to provide the educational credential assessment report to establish your educational credentials. If you have also run process after EI side-by-side UI, side-by-side with a province, and you have been selected, you need to provide that provincial nomination. If you've got a job offer, or if you already have it, or you got it during the process, you need to provide that as well. And you have to establish the onus is on the applicant to establish eligibility for this class. Now, we talked about express entry pool, and express entry pool is the one where all the participants who have submitted EOIs, their profiles exist, and Comment keeps on drawing out of those profiles based on the comprehensive ranking system. One thing, as in this particular webinar, we are joining from different parts of the world. We speak different languages. We are in various continents. So there's a possibility that your basic education or educational experience and other documents may not be in English or French, which are two official languages. So in that case, you have to be prepared that everything which is not in English or French, every document, every piece of evidence has to be translated to the official languages in Canada. The fees, they also depend for expression of interest. The first part where federal skilled worker applicants or aspirants, they submit their EOIs. There's no fee for the EOI. There's no government processing fee for the EOI submission. Once you have submitted, you are in the pool and you are invited to apply. Then once you submit your application, there are various processing fees involved, or when you're close to becoming a PR, then there are right of permanent residence fee, and then the fee varies for adults and children. So those fees we can talk about once you have reached that stage. Okay, now after the fee, you have to keep in mind that nobody admits a foreign national in Canada unless Canadian government has satisfied itself through background checks, through medical examination, through criminal background checks that yes, you meet all the eligibility factors, but there is some, they also want to ensure that there is no criminal background or there is no medical inadmissibility which could cause a burden on the Canadian social welfare or health system. So in this process, you have to keep in mind that though you would be able to meet the merit of these applications, even if you're able to meet the merit, but there is some kind of criminal inadmissibility involved, or there is some recent conviction, or you have a criminal background, which reflects that you could be a threat to Canadian peace and Canadian law enforcement system. Then despite having qualified under all categories, despite scoring very high, you may still be inadmissible. So in this process, anybody who's filling out the preliminary information form or the client identification form, if there's anything which concerns you and which you believe might cause an obstacle in your application despite your high merit, you have to mention it to us, and then during consultation we can discuss it. And first, before submitting or before proceeding on your PR application, we must address those concerns and see whether there's a legal way of getting out of that kind of inadmissibility. So we keep on seeing cases We keep on seeing people who are participants of who are citizens of the first world, including US and UK and European countries. They have passports that do not require any temporary resident visas, or they have very high English or French proficiency along with education. They score very high in CRS scores. But even if they have criminal inadmissibility, even a conviction such as driving under the influence of alcohol, despite all the merit, they will not be able to get even a visitor visa, a visitor entry in Canada. They don't require, most of the Western countries, they don't require any, they don't require a visit visa. They may be admitted free without a visit visa, but those people cannot get permanent residence or entry into Canada on a temporary basis, even if they have some kind of criminal issues involved. Now, who are the people we are addressing? Now, at this time during the presentation, we are all clear that I am expecting people listening to this webinar, with those people who are foreign skilled workers who have at least a graduate degree, a minimum bachelor's degree as per Canadian standards in their home countries or from Canada. They have at least 1 year of experience in a skilled trade or profession which is required in Canada. They have high English or French proficiency. Their age is more towards the younger, because there are points allocated for age, education, English proficiency, experience, adaptability. So those people who are in the younger years of life, they score maximum in their age factors. For example, if you are 28, 29 years of age, you may get most of the points in this category. Similarly, those professionals, the highest degrees of those who hold the highest qualifications of PhD, they get the maximum score. Those who hold bachelor's, they get minimum score in that grade. But those who have a master's degree as per Canadian equivalence or education system, if it is equivalent to a master's, they are the people who can optimize their scores, because with a master's degree and a high English proficiency, you may also be able to get extra scores for the skill transferability factor. Similarly, for your experience, you gather maximum experience, you may be able to gather maximum points if you have at least 3 years of experience, along with high English or French proficiency, as well as experience. So those people are also the ones who may be able to maximize their score. Now we are talking, and here most of the people should be or would be reaching the target of at least 1 to 3 years of experience, master's degree, English or French proficiency established through a Canadian government's recognized test. If you are married, then the points are also allocated to your spouse's education, experience, language proficiency. If you have family in Canada, if you have brothers, sisters living in Canada, they are Canadians or permanent residents, you may get extra score based on that. If you're a person who has secured during the process, the person who has secured a job offer in Canada, and it's an approved job offer as per Canadian requirements, then that person would also be able to grab extra score in this express entry process, federal skilled workers applications through the express entry system. Processing time, the government of Canada is committed that 80% of the applications which are submitted, 80% of the electronic PR applications after you have been invited and you have submitted the application, those applications are processed in 80% in 6 months' time, 80% of them. A few applications may take a little less than this. Sometimes we have seen applications being processed in 4 months as well. And other applications may take a little longer if there are multiple jurisdictions involved and the government has to go back and do background checks or there are other issues, verification issues. Then it may even go higher than 1 year of period. It also depends. Most of the times there's no interview in these applications. But if there is a reason before the visa officer that this person must be interviewed, to evaluate whether his or her experience is bona fide or whether there's the experience matches the National Occupational Code, then even in rare circumstances, you may be able to, you may be called for an interview in your respective consulate or embassy abroad. The advantage of this system is that anybody, you don't actually require a job offer for this. You can still qualify without having any connection. If you don't have any brother or sister or close relative in Canada, if you don't have any job offer in Canada, if you don't have any professional connection in Canada, you could still apply under that system, but under this class. But in that case, you have to make sure that you are scoring very high in your language proficiency skills, you have optimum experience, and you have high qualifications. So candidates who are educated enough, who have enough experience, high English proficiency, and a couple of other adaptability factors, they may still be able to immigrate to Canada without having a job offer, or without having a relative in Canada, or without having any kind of a provincial or other connection in Canada. Disadvantage of this application is when people ask that, all right, how much time would it take for me to qualify or come to Canada under this system? We could say it could take 6 months, or it could take forever. So if you are a strong candidate, then you may be able to immigrate under this program, Federal Skilled Workers Program, within months, within 6 months, as the government targets 80% of the times from the submission of your PR. If you are not a strong enough candidate and you don't have strong credentials, your CRS scores are low, then it may take forever, because you would keep on submitting your EOI. EOI expires every year in 12 months time. So you have submitted an EOI, you were not picked up, you never got an ITA, that EOI expires, you come back the next year by submitting another EOI. Your age might have, you're now one year older, and you might have lost some score here as well. So you keep on doing it. That's not the key to success. If you have low score, then you have to, it is advisable that you contact a lawyer, or somebody who could strategize, who is an immigration lawyer as well as a strategist with that kind of thinking. So he could find out a legal way for you to come to Canada by strategizing and choosing a pathway which would have higher certainty for you, or higher probability of success for you. So the disadvantage is, even if you have initiated an application, but your scores are not high enough, you may not be able to qualify despite having met an EOI requirement, the minimum eligibility requirement. So if you meet minimum eligibility requirement, but your CRS scores are low, then you have to think about the legal ways that how could you bump up your CRS scores and make your application more probable for success. Now, the eligibility requirements, we have already talked about them. These 6 factors you have to keep in mind in the grid of this application. So in these applications, your age, your work experience, your education, language proficiency, arranged employment, adaptability, these are the factors which can make or break an application, which could help you secure your Canadian dream, or which could frustrate you that you're not able to come to Canada, even trying several years for this process. Now, this settlement funds requirement it's an important requirement. You might have heard of it. I especially included it in this application to explain to you that settlement funds are the funds which must be available with an approved applicant, or a participant, or somebody who avails of this program based on his or her family size. So during all this process, if you meet all elements of an application, your EOIs were accepted, you were invited to apply, you submitted, your CRS score was high enough, that's why you were invited. And then in the application process, you were able to establish that whatever you claimed in EOI, on whichever basis you were invited to apply, you have the documentation and evidence to prove those credentials. Even if you are able to meet all requirements, but you do not have enough settlement funds in your account, you would still not be able to succeed in this process, and your application would be unfortunately refused. Now, one misconception about these funds is that once people submit their applications, the electronic applications, they have funds lying in their account depending on their family size. As soon as they submit their application, then they start utilizing these funds for other purposes. And later on, to their surprise, in 6 months or 5 months or 1 year's time, when their application is finally processed and the officer is making a determination, and the officer has reason to believe, or he comes across an evidence that you no more have the settlement funds, even at that stage, your application could be refused. So settlement funds, you should not only have enough settlement funds available as per your family size, but you should also maintain your account till the time that a final decision has been taken. And when you're coming to Canada, landing to Canada, at that time, even the officer, when they are at the port of entry, they're admitting you, they will look at the settlement funds and satisfy themselves that you have enough of it. So in the Federal Skilled Workers Program, there are three skill types. Like skill type O is management level jobs, skill level A is professional jobs, and skill level B is technical jobs and skilled trades. So if you meet all the factors, then we have to make sure that you qualify under one of the national occupational codes, and you belong to a profession, you have experience in a profession which is required by the Canadian immigration in that particular time or in that particular year. Federal skilled trades class, we are not diving deep into this because this is a part of express entry system programs managed through express entry system, but federal skilled trades is for the people who have some trades experience, they have trade certification, they have relatively lower English or French proficiency level, but these are the people who could also avail of the express entry system to come to Canada. Now, Canadian experience, we have already discussed these two classes. We're not getting into detail today, but we have most of our focus on the federal skilled workers class. Now, this is a very important slide, and this talks about the common pitfalls of the federal skilled workers applications. Now, there are so many reasons. I could not, I could not summarize all the reasons here because there are, I think they may run in dozens if we try to look at all of them at one glance. But a few common pitfalls for the federal skilled workers applications are that one, the people are not able to determine their minimum eligibility when they are starting that application. So what happens, they have not calculated it well, and based on some misunderstanding, because you're not submitting a lot of evidence at this stage. You make a calculation, you try to submit your 67 points to your EOI based on minimum eligibility points, and later on you realize that the calculation was not correct. Naturally, the process won't go forward from there. Then when you're submitting an EOI, I have commonly seen that people look at the knock codes, and then when they are matching or when they're picking up the code which matches their experience very close, they add in that, and they, without relying, just they look at the code, a couple of words used in the code, and then they when they are picking up the code, they feel that yeah, my job description or the work which I'm doing, it closely relates to that, while it is not closely related to that. Now, this aspect is very important. If you have picked up a wrong code in your expression of interest, any other errors in your expression of interest, your application is bound to fail. So we have noticed that even in these applications at advanced stages, sometimes the immigration authorities, they call you for interview. All right, now in this expression of interest, if the knock code is not correct, then they may call you for interview, and during that interview, they will have a very, very thorough discussion with you, and they would try to assess whether you have performed the duties which you are claiming in the knock code. So in last year, we had a client interviewed for 1.5 hours only based on that. So that client was residing in a country where the consulate didn't exist, so he had to travel to another country, another consulate in another location, and he was interviewed only for the job description and the knock code, and then they finally determined that, look, you do not meet these knock code requirements, and your experience is not what you have suggested, an experience which meets the knock code requirements. So there were some mistakes committed by the visa officers in that particular interview, and they were not doing it professionally. There was an incorrect understanding. So we later on clarified that understanding through extra submissions, and then ultimately that client is today a Canadian permanent resident. But it happens, so these knock codes and job descriptions, you have to match them very closely in both the knock code as well as your job description. If there are errors in it, despite the fact that you've met all other elements, you may still not be able to immigrate to Canada or succeed in an application. Then there are incorrect understanding of comprehensive ranking system. People go on the online calculators, try to calculate it there, ask a friend or a family member who did it. They try to simulate their experience, and misunderstanding of the comprehensive ranking system is something which can also be a recipe to disaster. Now, these comprehensive ranking systems, they are managed through the ministerial instructions. When we are looking at the comprehensive ranking system and we are calculating these scores, we go to the ministerial instruction, those notices which are issued by the Minister of Immigration, and then they have set out all different scoring patterns in that, or what should be, how a person should be scored. So if there's an incorrect understanding of comprehensive ranking system, you may be under a misunderstanding that I have a high enough score in the CRS and I could still I would be able to immigrate, but you may not be scoring that high in that. Then the burden in these applications is on the applicant to establish all their credentials. Like, establishing age is not a complex thing, like you provide your valid passport and other IDs and your age is established. But establishing your experience in a particular knock code, establishing that that was a full-time experience and you were paid for that, and your company is able to vouch for that experience and certify that experience, that's very important, especially for the people who are not working in multinational or high-end corporations, because those people are the ones, now, those people are the ones who are not working in an organized, not all of us are working in Unilever or Philip Morris or Reckitt and Keyser and other companies. Now, these people, those people who are working in smaller companies, local companies, in their own family businesses, they are looked at very closely, because there could be an element of misrepresentation there, or there could be an element of maneuvering there. So that's assumed or presumed maneuvering by the immigration officers. So you have to understand these requirements. Now the burden is on the officer. The officer would give you an opportunity in the application and in rare cases in an interview, but it is the applicant who must establish all those credentials. If you somehow, based on misunderstanding or not pleading very diligently, you're not able to convince the officer, then naturally you have not met the burden of proof in that case, and the application may lead to refusal at some stage. Now, similarly, misunderstanding of settlement funds, we've already discussed. There are inadmissibility issues that we have touched upon them previously, and we could tell further that anybody who meets all the requirements is the highest scoring candidate if there are criminal inadmissibility, medical inadmissibility, inadmissibility based on misrepresentation, inadmissibility based on some other security grounds or human rights violations and other reasons, that person could still, despite having met all the elements in the Federal Skilled Worker Program application, may still not be able to qualify and could be refused to be immigrated or to be issued a permanent residence of Canada. So if there are some reasons, it's a good idea to talk to your lawyer, to explain everything to them, and then address those issues before you start with your application. Misrepresentation scenarios, I would just give you a couple of examples. Sometimes you are applying for a visitor visa to Canada, for Canada, or you are coming on a study permit. You have submitted application to Canadian authorities for your previous education, your work experience, and other issues. Now, this application would remain in the database for a long period of time. Now, later on, you submitted or you were even refused an application. Later on, you applied for permanent residence based on the Federal Skilled Workers category, and you submitted an information which was contrary or which was in conflict with the information you previously submitted in a previous application. Now, based on that, you may be slapped with, I'm sorry to use this word, with the misrepresentation ban. So if your application in the past carried an information which was in contradiction with your current application, you may be barred from entering Canada temporarily or permanently for a period of 5 years. So it's very important that you keep all the information consistent during this process. Now, we have seen there's a question in a few of you who might have applied for a temporary resident visa, or someone in their family has applied. They may be aware there's a question in those forms that have you ever been refused visa or entry into the US, into Canada or any other countries. So sometimes people just look at the application, and then if they have never been refused visa of Canada, they answer no, though they might have been refused a visa for Europe or UK or another country. So when the immigration has that information, has this means to verify that information, and they feel that you didn't correctly answer, we have seen cases slapped with the misrepresentation ban for a 5-year period. So unfortunately, even if that person has got enough of score, the CRS scores and eligibility factors and everything, if there's some misrepresentation involved even on such a minor issue, then one may not be able to come to Canada or even apply for permanent residence or any other kind of temporary residence for a period of at least 5 years. Now, in the last slide, which I was very excited to share with you, it talks about the people who have evaluated themselves and they feel that their scores are lower than what could probably select them in the express entry system. What are various things they are able to do to enhance or to bump up their scores? There are multiple things which they could do, and those things we could cover in a later session as well. But a few common things which one could do to bump up scores are one, secure a Canadian job offer. Secure a Canadian job offer, talk to employers in Canada, talk to headhunters in Canada, talk to your friends and family in Canada who are able to connect you to a genuine employer in Canada. You don't have to pay. I am aware that there are scams all around the world, that there are agents and unscrupulous elements, consultants who tell you that, all right, pay us $30,000, $20,000, $40,000. We can arrange a job for you. Please don't fall to those kind of tempting offers from these consultants. This is a crime. If you are involved in maneuvering a job offer, you have no intent of actually working, and a Canadian employer only shows on paper that you have a job, then likely that person is not only violating immigration law, but also criminal law in Canada, and there could be criminal consequences. But for genuine job offers, there's no bar. You can go to your relatives, friends, you can approach employers directly and try to secure a job offer. Now, this job offer, not only, it's not a job offer on a piece of paper that you are offered this job and this is your salary. This should be a job offer which is approved by the Canadian government. You cannot just have a job offer letter and based on that get those scores, but actually your employer has to go to the Service Canada or Employment and Social Development Canada. Your employer has to establish that he or she has tried to hire Canadians or permanent residents who are available to take up the job, but he wasn't able to get any appropriate candidates, and there were recorded reasons that he was not able to secure those resumes or those. In that case, that employer is allowed to hire a foreign national. So approved job offer, a job offer by a Canadian employer who has gone to the government and got an approval that since he or she is not finding a Canadian resident or a citizen, he is inclined to hire a foreign worker. So that job offer may get you points from 50 to 200, depending on the level of that job offer. If it is a management level job, then you can expect to get an extra 200 points. So someone who is sitting at 350 CRS scores, if he gets a job 00 knock and approved employer, that job could get you around 200 points, and then that would make journey of immigrating to Canada a breeze for you. Similarly, if you don't have an employer in Canada whom you know, if there's no relative who could connect you to a genuine employer, if you couldn't get a job offer, or if there's an employer who's willing to offer you a job, but that employer is not willing to go to Service Canada and do all the application process to get it approved, and you are a person who may be able to establish a business in Canada, you have some funds available. At this time, there's a program available in which there's an option available or a route available that you look for a business in Canada through a lawyer, through a business lawyer or an immigration lawyer, and that you secure that business. So you buy a majority shareholding of that business. Now, based on that business, you apply for a work permit, you come to Canada, you establish yourself here, you do the job for a year or so, and then later on, you in another application, you claim the 200 points which are allocated for, if it is a double O job, then you can grab those points and it could bump up your score. Similarly, you could do it while being there. But in this case, it's important that you have some investment available through which you can buy your own business. And for operating that business, for the sake of operating that business, you come to Canada on a work permit, and or you could grab or claim extra points in your CRS score. Similarly, people, most of the times, they believe that they have to meet minimum English proficiency or French proficiency score. For example, the minimum requirement is CLB 7 for English, which means that you have to secure a band of 6 across all factors, including listening, speaking, writing, and all 4 factors. Now, that's the minimum. That may qualify you to enter the EUI pool, but depending on other factors, if you are able to maximize your score, English or French proficiency score, then your chances enhance. If you have CLB 7, you may not be able to get extra points for skill transferability or your educational transferability. If you have CLB 9, which means 8 in listening and 7 in all 3 factors, then you may be able to get extra points, not only for your higher English proficiency, but for skill transferability as well. So if you are a person whose English skills or French skills are lower, then it's important that you improve your scores. Similarly, if you are a person who is proficient in one language, for example, English or French, and you are willing and able to learn the second language to a decent level, not a very high level, even that would help you bump up your scores. Education, if it is feasible for you or if it fits into your plans, yes. If you're a bachelor's degree holder, naturally a master's degree holder would get higher score. Now, when we are at the strategizing phase or stage, then we look at all the factors and see where are the low-hanging fruits and how can we maximize your CRS points, and then we can create a strategy which is for you. Naturally, you have to be very practical. You don't want to get into a strategy in which you are spending years and years and you are losing points in the age factor. Now, Canadian education and work experience, though strictly it falls under the Canadian experience class, but if you are able to come to Canada or work here, naturally you'll transition yourself from federal skilled workers to Canadian experience class. And currently the government has is focusing more towards the people who are already in Canada and who have some kind of Canadian skills or education or experience, as they believe that the person who is already in Canada, he's now more adaptable to become a Canadian citizen. So if the strategy or your circumstances permit, it could be one option. Securing a provincial nomination. Securing a provincial nomination means that you are able to go to a province which has labor shortages, and you run a parallel application process there. And if you qualify, then the province nominates you and you get extra 600 points for this. Now, one major misconception is that the people who have you might have heard about the provincial nomination, skilled nomination program, but most of you may not be aware that around 80 to 90% of these programs, they favor the people who are already in Canada. 2 to 3 programs may be open to the people who have never been in Canada, but then the competition is fierce. Now, if you are someone who has lived in that particular province, or he has done a job, or he has a job offer from that province, that may be able to secure higher points. But if you are someone who has never been in Canada, who has no job offer from a particular province, it may become a difficult task to secure a PNP application. But reviewing your profile, having looked at your knock codes, your scores, would give us some idea that there are 1, 2, or 3 provinces in which you could try your luck. And we have seen multiple low scoring CRS scoring candidates who were able to secure nominations in smaller provinces, and based on that, they were able to come to Canada. Now, similarly, securing temporary residence with dual intent leading to a PR, a permanent residence pathway. If you are coming to Canada on a temporary basis, you must establish in your application that you would only be in Canada for a temporary period of time, and you would leave Canada. So if the officer believes that your intent is permanent, then even despite having a visa, you may be refused refuse entry into Canada. Now, there's a concept called dual intent, in which you are coming on a temporary basis, but you also may possess a permanent intent. So in those cases, there are certain ways in which the scores could be bumped up. There are other options. A few of you who might be working as executives or managers in business, they may be able to come to Canada through one of the entrepreneur pathways. Sometimes it happens, we see candidates, brilliant candidates, very highly educated, highly experienced, but they are in an age bracket like 45 and above, where they won't be able to maximize their CRS scores. But these are the people who have some kind of business experience, management of business experience, and business development, other skills which are required. So those people may also or do look at the entrepreneur options available to them. Similarly, startup visa is another option. We'll come to this program. It requires a full-fledged webinar or a session, but there are startup visa options if you are an innovative entrepreneur and you are somebody who has worked in a business environment and you have some innovative idea. You may be able to approach Canadian companies, startups, incubators, or angel investors, venture capitals, and get nominated, based on which you could get immigration. Now, I think there are still many options left, but these are the major ones, and then there are unique options. Once we receive your resumes or your preliminary information, we can look at specifics of those programs and how would it interact vis-a-vis your profile. So what we covered today, we covered federal skilled workers, and most importantly, some basic steps or elements of those applications, and then the major pitfalls of these applications, and what are the ways to bump up score. There are several things left out. Naturally, we couldn't cover it. We have already run over the presentation time, but I wanted to give you maximum information which I could. The next steps is, how do you start the process? So if you believe that you wish us to look at your profiles, just a preliminary review, you can fill out these two forms, which would be circulated to you. This presentation would be circulated to you. You could just click on these forms and fill out information. And once we review that information, someone from my law firm, after I've reviewed, would get back to you with our initial feedback. Now, anybody who has been able to join us or remain with us till this time in the application, normally we charge a $375 assessment fee. But for the first three aspirants or applicants who would submit these forms to us, we would not only make an assessment of their profiles, but we would also schedule free consultation with those people in the coming days. So this is what we could offer to help you, a few of you at least, to know their options. Now we are in the Q&A session.
The difference between the express entry and also the PNP.
Okay. All right. Now, first of all, Canada is a federation. The immigration policy and system is run by the federal government of Canada. Now, the provinces, they also have some, okay. All right. Now, some of the provinces, they have their peculiar labor needs, right? They have employers who need to hire foreign workers from Canada, in their own provinces. Now, federal government runs the system. Anybody who qualifies as a federal skilled worker through express entry system, that person could remain in any province in Canada. Once that person immigrates, lands in Canada, that person doesn't have any restriction to live in a particular province or a territory. That person could remain in Toronto or Ontario, or go to British Columbia or whichever province. Now, based on the labor needs, Canadian federal government has entered into several arrangements with the provinces or territories for attracting those foreign nationals or professionals in those particular provinces. So they have allocated a quota to different provinces, to Ontario, to British Columbia, to Manitoba, to Saskatchewan, and other provinces. That all right, this number of immigrants you can select every year under your provincial nominee program. So you run a process to process their applications, or a system to process their applications, depending on the labor shortages in your particular province or territory. Once you have run the process and you have selected several candidates, then you can issue them a nomination certificate. And then if those participants whom a province has selected as skilled workers as per their labor shortages, those people are, when they are nominated by the province in express entry system, the government would grant them 600 extra points as a provincial nominee. So most of the systems, they are aligned with most of the provincial nominee programs, they are aligned with the federal skilled workers category. So for most of them, you need to have a profile available in the federal system, in the pool of applicants. You must have submitted an EOI. So once you submit an EOI, you can select a province of your choosing where you feel that you have a high chance of being nominated by that province, and then you submit your application to that province as well. Similar, an application which is somehow similar to express entry, where they are also evaluating your age, education, experience, and other factors, and the experience in a particular profession or in a particular employment situation. So if those provinces, they select you through their own independent system, they nominate you to before the federal government, you get extra points in the express entry system towards your CRS scores. So someone who submitted an EOI in federal government, then went to a province, applied for their slot, and that person was successful in that in securing a provincial nomination. Now this person would be given extra points in the express entry system, and those extra points could facilitate him to reach the CRS target for that. For example, we have candidates who scored around 350 points. Then they went to one of the province, they ran the process with that province. And then once that province nominated them, they got those extra 600 points added to their CRS score, and they were able to secure permanent residence in Canada.
NOC and the work experience, because obviously, I'm sure, like, I live in the UK, but sometimes the jobs you're doing are not necessarily going to be like directly the same as what the government is looking for. So do they allow transferable skills, or how, what is your advice? Would you suggest that we look at what jobs are available in Canada so we could maybe have that kind of work experience, or should we try and think of the transferable skills with the job we are doing? I just wanted an understanding how the NOC works, because to me it looks like, is it too specific? Does it allow transferable skills?
I got you.
Sorry, Hannah, where are you from?
Here, if you Google NOC codes, I'm not sure whether you have done National Occupational Codes. If you Google NOC codes, you would see a page from Canadian Immigration, which has a box there, and you could put in your title in that, or whichever job you're doing, and you would be able to see whether there's any NOC which is covering that particular profession or not, or that particular experience. In my view, there's a huge variety of NOC codes which are available, or which are up for this immigration federal skilled workers category. So sometimes you believe that you have Googled those codes and you feel that somehow your experience is not overlapping the code description. But if you try several other combinations in your job description, you may be able to find another appropriate code. It happens, for example, if you are a business professional, or if you're working in one profession, you're not able to see your code strictly. You're not a financial auditor whose NOC code is 1111, but you are in a business organization where you are rendering some kind of business support, or you fall into the category of other managers in business who are able to help in businesses, then you may be able to find another code in that category. Now, just basing your full-fledged career planning on a particular code may not be very feasible, because these NOC codes are based on the Canadian job requirements and the skills required in Canada. Now, if you rely on one code today, and then you change your direction, you change your job to secure those particular skills which are required for that national occupational code. And after a couple of years, you submit your application. There is a likelihood that the government might have withdrawn those professions from the federal skilled worker categories or those NOC code. It happened to many candidates, like it happened to more than 400,000 candidates in 2012. Those candidates, this was a precursor of express entry. That was not strictly an express entry system at that time, but it was a federal skilled workers application. People who, based on their educational experience, they submitted their applications. They were in the pipeline, and a few of them were waiting for years. And in 2012, the government of Canada realized that they no more required certain professions or certain NOC codes or people with certain skills. And then they returned all those applications to more than 400,000 people across the world that, yes, we appreciate your interest in coming to Canada under this particular NOC code, but now our demographics, they show that we do not require these job skill sets in our profession, in our country anymore. So that's why we are thankful for your interest, but we are returning all your applications and we are returning all the processing fees which you're paying. So in short, you should first of all make an assessment that if your occupational responsibilities, duties, job description, that is not strictly falling in one NOC code, is there another NOC code which could match closely to your skill set? And if there's one, then you should keep on developing your experience in whatever profession it is. Don't just change your profession or your full job description with the hope that you qualify under one code today, because when you're submitting, there may be a likelihood that code may not be required, and you would have already changed your profession or your full direction in your career.
If we want to apply in the FSW program, you will need to improve your score. One of the way is to get a Canadian job offer. But currently, since we are applying from the outside of Canada, we do not have like social insurance number, right? And then I know that if we want to apply job in Canada, usually we will need this social insurance number. Perhaps if we have like a way to find a job, or maybe is there any like a job agency contacts or something like that, it will be super helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. And it's an important question. I cannot emphasize less that you don't have to rely on paid people who are offering these jobs to you, because these jobs, I have seen ads, and I keep on receiving text or messages and emails from my friends that, look, I saw this ad and they are offering a free job in Canada, and we just have to share our information with them and we'll get a job offer. I've even seen contracts and agreements of the consultants with certain clients where they undertook that they would arrange a job for them and they would get them labor market impact assessment, and the client never knew about that employer. When I asked those clients, look, how could you even expect that you would be sitting in a foreign country and you have never been interviewed by an employer, you have never submitted an application, and you would still get a job offer, and that job offer would even be approved by the government. Now, if you have to now first avoid all those kind of contacts. This is a separate thing, that if you are, for example, we practice business law and we practice immigration law. We have clients who are in businesses, who have established businesses in Canada. If they have a genuine need, if you are a client, without charging any money from you, we can always forward your resume to one of our clients who is hiring foreign nationals, has been hiring. And if on merit, that client believes that, yes, you are the person who would be the best fit, they could hold a formal assessment, or in most of the cases, assessment centers and interviews, and do the due diligence and finally offer you a job. That's absolutely fine, because you're not paying any money for that kind of job. Otherwise, if you have to look for a job, the best place to look for a job is Job Bank of Canada. That's a government approved, that's a search engine or a job posting site which is operated and managed by the government. Now, there is one requirement: anybody who intends to hire a foreign national, that particular business in Canada or employer must advertise that job on the Job Bank. So anybody, any employer who is intending to hire a foreign national must advertise for Canadians or permanent residents, not only on the job bank, but on other prestigious sites such as Indeed.com, or there are certain other sites as well. So if there are credible sites, you can go there, reach there. Most importantly, Job Bank Canada, and don't pay anything for that and look for those. There are cases in which people have been hired from these job sites. Now, second, if you are hiring a headhunter for that, so generally how it operates in Canada, like most of the countries, that headhunters, they work on behalf of the employers. They look for different resumes in the database or otherwise, even on LinkedIn searches and others. And if they find an appropriate candidate, they may connect that candidate to the employer as well. Now, even in the cases of headhunters, you don't have to pay any headhunter, because in Canada, if they have hired you for an employer, the employer is the party which compensates that headhunter. So you can get idea of jobs available on the Canada's job bank. You Google it and you'll be able to find it there and look for jobs. You go to a headhunter, but keeping in mind that you're not paying anything to them, look for your particular industry. There are certain headhunters who are only working for specific industries, or their account managers are working for specific industries. Try to get in touch with such a headhunter who is looking after the industrial recruitment or recruitment in the industry to which you belong, and you can do it there. Last thing, if you have some international experience, or you're part of a multinational organization, then you should look for that your company's operations in Canada. If you're working in Unilever, if you're working in Coca-Cola or PepsiCo, then you look for those websites in Canada. And then those bigger companies and multinational companies, they have a very organized process. You go to their career page, see which opportunities are available there. And then if there's an opportunity which matches your skill set, you can directly apply online as well. So I've seen that it's in multiple cases, like clients who have relocated to Canada, they were previously working with one particular company, which has Canadian operations as well. They try to network through their friends or their bosses in their own countries. They try to network and connect to the similar high ranking officers in Canada in the Canadian operation. And then they were able to secure interviews in that. So these three top suggestions, I would say. First, get in touch, look at the Job Bank Canada, because that's the official site. Don't pay anything and to anybody. Look for the industry specific headhunters and send your resumes to them. And third, look for the major companies' websites and their career pages and find if there's an appropriate knock available for you. Now, one thing we have to keep in mind, even when you come to Canada or you become a PR and you're looking for a job, it's a competitive market, not only in Canada, in other countries as well. So you may be looking at submitting dozens of applications. You cannot just submit 2, 3, 4 applications and then rely that you would get a job offer from someplace. It is competitive. We have seen that people, sometimes apply to 50 different places, different companies, and then they are able to land in 1 or 2 interviews in there. A few things you have to keep in mind. Every time you apply for a company, you just don't use one standard template of your letter of interest or your resume. Tweak it a bit according to that need. So those people, they look at your resume and they know that you have researched about their company and you are trying to offer skills which match their companies. In various markets and various companies, they have initial CV selection process or mechanisms or systems as well. So you have to look for the keywords. So every time you're submitting a resume, it may not be going to a human contact. It may be sorted by a computer. So you have to keep in mind that you have some practices in which you not only look at the job description, you look at your resume, you tweak it a bit and try to put in all those keywords which a computer would pick up if they're going to offer you the initial interview, or you're getting an initial, or you would be getting an initial email of company willing to look further into your resume. I hope this answers the question very well, comprehensive. You're right.
There's no like outsource,
No.
like manpower outsource that you can do transaction between the supplier and local supplier and the supplier in Canada.
Yes, there could be a few options, but they are mostly for the general labor or construction workers, those kinds of, or seasonal agricultural workers, that kind of manpower we are talking about.
Yes.
But for executive level or for skilled professionals like our audience who are highly qualified, who are master's
Yes,
level, working in high environment, naturally it varies from a department to department and profile to profile. I could see Mr. Salman Farooqi raised a hand for a question. So
the potential candidates would be like French national. My understanding is a little bit easier if it's like a French national. I don't know whether other attendees here are French and have been addressed those issues.
So yes, you will have extra points for French national. There are multiple provinces which are promoting people or who wish to take people who are bilingual or who know French. So if you know French and you are, then your options are pretty broad, and then you would be able to secure higher points compared to someone who only knows English or who only knows French.
Right. Actually, I not only know French, but I'm actually French national.
Oh, so that's great. So you will have naturally a far better option compared to somebody like me who doesn't know French.
So, but does it mean to say that I have to specifically goes to Quebec and apply through Quebec immigration?
Quebec is one option, but even in Ontario, there is a Francophone program which takes French people. And then you may also be able to be nominated under the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. It's French part. So they hold regular draws. If you are an express entry and you also know French, then you may be able to be nominated by Ontario. And one thing about Ontario program, I am on the Ontario Bars Committee on the OINPO of Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. Now, once you submit your expression of interest in under Federal Skilled Worker Express Entry, then you are automatically reviewed by the OINP, and then they keep inviting candidates there. Now they're moving to to an EOI system. The talks are in the process, and they are consulting the stakeholders in it. So later sometime during this year or maybe next year, they would also introduce an EOI model. So once you are in Federal Skilled Worker pool, if that model hasn't been introduced, and if there's a French specific draw, you could get a nomination from OINP. And if you don't have sufficient CRS score, you may bump up your score through that nomination. So yes, it is not specific to Quebec. There are other provinces which would also welcome people with French proficiency.
If you have a family, for example, I've got a daughter and, maybe I qualify or she qualifies, wherever. Is the family application considered together? Especially like someone, if she's an adult, like she's 18 or 19. So, because obviously if one qualified and one did not, then you would have a problem because you can't really leave the other. So that's what I was wondering. And also, how much funds do you need, the settlement funds?
Now, yes, first thing, a principal applicant's spouse, and all children who are unmarried and who are below 22 years of age, they qualify with that applicant. So if you qualify, your spouse, your children, all your children who are 22 or less, and they are unmarried, they still qualify. In certain circumstances, those individuals or children who are higher than 22 years of age or more than 22 years of age, but they are financially dependent or they have some kind of psychological or other dependence, they may also qualify. So yes, in this case, your daughter who is 18 years old should qualify as your dependent. Now, coming on the settlement funds requirement. So the settlement funds are required as per family number. So if you are, say, one person, I don't exactly recall the exact numbers to the accuracy of dollars, but if you are a single person, the only person applying, if it is 15,000 with two, it could be 25,000. With 5 family members, it could be say $50,000-$60,000. So there's if you submit us your form and raise this question in the client identification form, I could send you the most recent table for settlement funds based on the family size.
Hi, Sajad.
Hi.
Yeah, I would like to know, based on job offer, whether we can, we have to secure permanent job offer instead of 1 year, for example, 1 year job offer. Is there any regulation for job offer to be qualified and counted into this application?
Yes, so there could be different kinds of job offers, but for permanent residents, you have to show a permanent job offer. But then there could be other ways if you're coming to Canada to grab Canadian experience, and then later on you would switch to a pathway, use your refreshed job offer to bump up your score. That's also possible. So yes, depends on the circumstances, and it depends on what you are aspiring for. What is the purpose of that job? If that job is to support your PR application right now when you are outside of Canada, or you wish to come earlier on a temporary basis and then later on transition to a permanent residence program. For example, you could secure a job offer in one of the provinces in Canada, and then based on that province, that job offer and your intended experience in that particular province, you may find a provincial route available to you or a PNP application. So yes, we have to look at your particular circumstances, specific circumstances, and then strategize what is the best job offer for you, whether it's permanent or a couple of years job offer or 1 year job offer, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, okay. So basically, if we go straight to apply for PR, we need to secure permanent job offer.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, wait. Okay, anybody, is that enough? Do you still want to ask questions?
Yeah, I have one more, Georgina, if you allow me. It's
yes,
Hannah.
yes, please,
Yeah.
please. I learn as well, Hannah. I learn as well.
Yeah, yeah, sure. To ask Sajad, I think maybe from the point before, you might have answered some of my questions, but it's the temporary residency, which you said you can use as a route. Sorry, you said you can use that as a temporary entry and use that to apply for permanency. Would that be through sort of, you mentioned the job offer, maybe a temporary job offer, or maybe studies, if you want to come there and do a master's or something? Is that what is referred to? Is that the process maybe that we can use for temporary residence? And also, in your experience, I wanted to find out what factors are mainly favorable. You find mostly very favorable for, obviously people applying, because you listed quite a few, but which are the critical ones that one needs to score high on? So just to know, like, because I score very high on language, but I'm 0 on age or whatever. So it's a matter of just knowing which factors we should be focusing on. And yeah, and you mentioned something about a grid. I didn't understand that. So
all right. Yes. So for qualifying, if you wish to start your federal skilled workers program, you have to first of all qualify under the minimum eligibility criteria. And minimum eligibility criteria, there's a grid for that based on your age, education, experience, language proficiency, adaptability, and job offer. Your score would be calculated. And if you score 67 or more, then you are able to apply to submit an EOI. And once you have submitted an EOI, there's a totally different system, ranking system, which is called comprehensive ranking system. And through comprehensive ranking system, then your score, CRS score, would determine whether you are getting an invitation to apply right away, or if you're not getting an invitation to apply. Now, all factors are important, but certain factors you cannot do anything with. Like if you are at an age bracket where you're not favored, you cannot change your age. Similarly, if you are already master's level, now undertaking a PhD at that time, it also doesn't sound very, practical. It may not give you, you'll spend 4 years, 5 years in PhD, you'll lose your age further. And then after those 5 years, the bump up in score may not be sufficient enough. So if you're already scoring very high in English, you may top up in that level. If you are at a bachelor's level and another year or 2 years of schooling gives you master's level, then it may be worth it, because then that master's level would give you extra scores not only for masters, but it would also add transferability factors. It doubles the job and work experience and educational transferability factors. It doubles that a bachelor's holder, a degree holders with 5 to 6 years of experience, if he gets 25, and you are a master's degree holder with CLB 9 English proficiency, your score doubles for educational transferability from 25 to 50. Similarly, for experience as well as for it, you are looking at a difference of 100 points. Someone who is bachelor's degree holder has CLB 7 English proficiency and has 5-6 years of experience. If he or she is getting 50 points in skill transferability, then master's degree with CLB 9 and 6 years of experience would give you 100 points in the skill transferability. So that matters. So just, you have to look at all the circumstances. Now, if you're already a bachelor's degree holder and you would like to improve your bachelor's to master's degree, then it may be a good idea to come to Canada for that degree, because then that degree would not only give you the extra score for your master's level, but it would also enhance your skill transferability factors. At the same time, that degree would also give you Canadian educational extra points for Canadian education. Once you have completed that degree in Canada, then you might be entitled to postgraduate work permit. That postgraduate work permit would give you the opportunity to work in Canada as well, to gather Canadian experience as well. Now, if you have transitioned from bachelor's to master's in Canada, you are gaining an extra score for master's degree, you are gaining extra score for skill transferability, you are getting extra score for educational transferability, you are getting an opportunity to get an education, Canadian education, you are getting extra score for Canadian education, you are able to get the Canadian work experience, and you are getting extra score for Canadian work experience. So all this, I say with a disclaimer that this is general information, but I would definitely like to have a look at a specific particular profile to create a strategy for that particular candidate. But yes, there are ways of doing it. There's a lot of flexibility available as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So, Georgina, I think,
Okay.
yeah,
2 hours is good. Yeah, thanks, Ajat.
Thank you very much, all of you, and thank you very much for patiently listening to me. I am very passionate about immigration law because I was myself, I came to Canada as an immigrant. I lived in the United States as a student. I did my law from there as well. So I have seen that there's a lot of misinformation in our home countries where we are aspiring, and a lot of time is wasted in that effort. There are people who are not lawyers, who are not qualified to give you advice. They give you advice, and then sometimes we have no other option. We start relying on them. And then we wait 5, 7, 10 years. Often I've seen that a person comes to me and I tell him, hey, why didn't you come to me 5 years back? Or why didn't you come to me 3 years back? And because I could have done something at that time, but with the passage of time, with the loss of time, we're not able to do it. Now, another thing which I've seen in our countries is that we are not used to paying legal fees to the people. I remember when I first met a US immigration lawyer in my life, and he charged me $400 for a half an hour session. I was myself a bit stunned that this is how much we pay for a legal advice. But I still recall, and I thank God that I took the right advice from that person. That gave me a right direction. I wasn't misdirected. So yes, if you have to, that's why we are putting in a free assessment kind of a thing here. At least a lawyer will look at your credentials and then direct you to something. Sometimes you are going after one thing based on internet search, and you're saying that, all right, this is the only program as I say, but there could be another easier program which is available for your profile. And instead of struggling and hitting your head against express entry with CRS score 350, 350, 340, you can find another way, easier way, an underutilized program, which in your particular circumstances would be the best program for you and which would transition your life. So I have kept this pre-assessment kind of a thing here. Naturally, I cannot have full information. It is no substitute to one-to-one legal consultation, but naturally it could give you some hint of some direction in which you could go and make it your home. So, and I have seen the fruits of immigrating to a country like Canada, which is pretty ethical, and they care a lot about the countries. And I think that the best thing which happened to me as an immigrant was coming to Canada. And I aspire and I feel that if I'm able to help anybody make it your home and grow in Canada, grow your family in Canada, and if I could do anything, any minimum thing, even without remuneration or any charging a lot of fees, I would be happy to do it, because this is my livelihood, naturally my profession, but this is my passion as well. And I want to help people who do not have many options, who do not have access to legal advice, they do not have access to the Canadian legal system, and they are struggling with their cases. A few of you might be capable of immigrating, a few of you might be very qualified to come to Canada. Just a little redirecting or giving you some insight into the process would help you, succeed. And I wish all the best to everybody here. And I'm looking forward to helping any of you who would approach me in the coming days. And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Georgina. I thank very much Mr. Jayad Naeem, as well as my legal interns, law students who help us put up this presentation together. And I'm sorry for any technical issues here, since we are joining from all parts of the world. I try to compensate by putting in extra time, so we are able to discuss more interactive, and we could, at least I could answer and share whatever little knowledge I have. Thank you so much for your participation, and I'm looking forward to helping you further.
All right.